rush to get home. So
All right.
I better shut up. I don't want to incriminate myself.
Too late. You already did. All right.
Oh,
So, the topic for tonight is the I don't know mind.
You want to watch?
What's that?
Listen.
I'm going to mute you, Maurice.
Oh, I suppose I better do a test. So.
All right. So the I don't know mind. So talk to me. I don't know mind is in my book, and it's a little different than empty your cup. Tell me, Leah, what do you remember about the concept of empty your cup?
The concept of empty your cup. I don't. I remember the video though. I remember the video of the guy who kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring until it was overflowing.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what was behind it.
Do you remember what the video was about? Like what he said to him?
No.
So the young guy, the young sort of white guy, was talking about all the different karate moves that he knew. And then Jackie Chan, who was the karate expert or martial arts expert, was telling him to empty his cup. So does that open up anything for you?
Does it just mean we have to be open? We have to be open outside of ourselves to welcome in potential for growth or expansion?
Yeah, that's sort of working around the edges of it. Maurice, what do you remember about empty your cup?
That you have to go in with no preconceived notions and just be empty and absorb what comes to you. When I would, let's say, when I would meditate and just be not focused on anything in particular, and just be open to whatever came my way. I mean, I knew spirit knew what I wanted or needed or whatever, and it took a while. It took like 4 months before I did get a job, but I wasn't going into the meditation with any particular agenda, let's put it that way. And so after about 4 months, I had an experience that, and I got the job I was looking for. But but it's because I think it's because I stayed open to all the possibilities.
Yeah, so you're answering a couple of different questions there, and you're absolutely right that the idea behind empty your cup is this idea that we've sort of filled our mind with all kinds of ideas. And if you think about Out of the Matrix, you guys have done enough Out of the Matrix that it's sort of the way you think about things to some extent. But most of the world comes into the weekend and they're presented with those ideas, and they're new ideas for most of those people. And so we ask them to set aside what they have already understood about the world and about themselves, even though that's pretty much impossible. But as much as they're possible, to set aside what they know and what they believe about the world and about themselves, so that we can present them to some new ideas. And we even say to them that your understanding of the world and your understanding of yourself will be there when you're done with the weekend. If you want to go back to that and go back to those ideas, you can. But in the short term, empty your cup and sit back and take in this new information and see what you can glean from it in terms of your lives. So that's sort of the empty your cup idea presented with the videos and the way we presented in the weekend. We want people to open their minds up to new ideas, and it's hard to do that when it's filled with all these other ideas about the way the world works. That make sense, Leah?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I imagine that in a way it gets harder to do that the more we're in it doing this work. At least for me. I can see that happen sometimes because it's like, oh, I've heard that question before. I've thought about that before. I've worked through that before. I had that scenario before. And then I actually kind of like, I don't necessarily always have the same like open world as my oyster as that first weekend at Out of the Matrix either.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why we repeat that video even for returning students. So why is it valuable that we continue to empty our cup? And that's not necessarily for you, Leah, but anybody wants to answer that. Why is it valuable? What Leah's sort of describing it, but why is it valuable that we would encourage people to consistently empty their cup? The thought that I'm having. Go ahead, Neville.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it allows Well, for me, it allows my inner guide to, or allow, if I use that term, it allows me to have opportunities open up to me that I would not have thought or considered or been aware of. That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, even with what I'm going through right now, going through to where I'm going to be transitioning, I don't know where I'm going. I know what I'm being drawn to, but how it's going to happen, in what order, this, that, I don't have a clue. I don't know. But I'm okay with it. I'm not like trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to force it. I'm just kind of in the flow with it, kind of seeing where it goes. But I do know that change is happening for me. That I'm transitioning.
Yeah,
And
so,
with
go ahead.
that, Neville, like you're change. So if you're changing and we're ever expanding energy, right? And then all the people around us are too, then of course we would want to stay open because everything is always changing.
Yeah, I mean, both of you are absolutely right. So Neville's sort of describing this idea that when I empty my cup, I'm opening myself up to new and different possibilities that are available. And Leah, you're absolutely right. The one I was thinking of was this idea that if I'm an evolving person and changing person, the way I heard this material before is not going to fit for me in the same way now. So
Exactly.
so I empty my cup of how I heard it before and take it in and see where it fits for me now, based on who I am at the moment.
Yeah. And some of the stuff just doesn't make sense at all the first time.
Doesn't make sense? Yeah.
Like the cup didn't resonate with me at all for all these years. And now I'm finally getting it. So
Got
yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Go ahead, Neville.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, so we're constantly evolving, and what happens is, I'm not sure how to graphically display this, but we sort of empty our cup and we become open, and then we immediately start to narrow it down. We start to narrow down what we understand about it and apply it to our life in that moment. And right then we start filling our cup up again. And remember, we're saying that our description of us ultimately is that we're a limitless being. MLL standing for limitless. We're a limitless being. And if we're a limitless being and we're not experiencing that limitlessness, then there's something that I'm believing about myself that is blocking that awareness. And you'll also remember that in the weekend, what we talked about is getting rid of limits. So one of the first limits that we have for ourselves is being outer directed. In other words, blaming outside circumstances for our feelings and our experience of life. And when we're doing that, we're limiting our possibilities. And so that's one of the limits that we can remove from our life, is stop blaming outside things for how we feel and how we experience things. That's one limit. And then ultimately in the weekend, we get to the false beliefs that we have about ourselves are the ultimate limit that we place on ourselves. And as the size of that belief, so we put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm not good enough, NGE, we put NGE not good enough on a scale of 1 to 10. If I can reduce that number from 10 to say 3, that's going to make a huge difference in my life. And it's going to open up much more for me. And what I'm doing is I'm emptying my cup of those false beliefs of myself. But it's a process. We don't come out of the weekend and, you might drop your number from an 8 to a 7 in the weekend, but probably not from an 8 to a 3. And that's why we continue to work on this process. So that's sort of the empty your cup idea. Other thoughts or questions about that empty your cup idea? But you guys sort of nailed it with all three of your comments, in the sense that really the thing that we need to empty our cup the most about is our understandings of ourselves and how we operate. And we come into the weekend with our cup filled with that. That is what our cup is mostly filled with, is our understanding of ourself. And remember, our understanding of ourself is how we see the world. So if I feel like I'm not good enough and it's an 8, then I'm going to see not good enough all over the world, all the time. That's what I'm going to see. And so as we reduce the number, we can start to see things more clearly. So the other piece of this is we're going to do a snowman, right? Conscious and subconscious, the false beliefs, and your cup is filled with the false beliefs that are in your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind is what is mostly filling your cup as well. That's where the false beliefs are. Okay. in your subconscious mind, all right? And so, and this is also the past. Most of us are stuck in reliving the past through our subconscious false beliefs. So in other words, I'm here in this moment right now. This is me in the moment. And I'm using all these past experiences and past understandings of things to interpret what's going on for me in this moment. And on some level, it can be valuable in the sense that I can use my past experience of crossing a street and know that to know when it is safe to cross the street and when it isn't. I can use my past experience to know that touching a hot stove burns my finger and I don't want to do that anymore. But there's another part of life where we start to evaluate ourselves and our situation by our past, and that leaves us doing what in the future? I'm evaluating my present situation based on past circumstances and experiences. What's going to happen in the future?
Repeat.
Just been.
Yeah, more of the same. The future is going to look very much the same. And that's one of the major issues we have with personal growth, personal development, all those kind of things, is this issue that I look at my present moment and I evaluate my present moment based on the past, and I evaluate myself with judgments. I judge myself based on my past experiences in life, and then I judge myself in this moment as that person, and then I can only do what that person does in the future. So this is why it becomes a struggle, and it's a struggle in part because we need some of that past information, like crossing the street, a hot stove, all those kind of things. We need those past understandings of things so that we can, make good decisions in the moment. But when it comes to judging ourselves, we need to let go of that, and that's where the false beliefs come into play, and we have to try and release that. So questions about that? Does that make sense? Jessica, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So
Good.
we're talking about empty your cup, and we're going to move into, we talk about empty your cup. I want to take it to a different level, which is the I don't know mind. Okay. So empty your cup is one idea. And we just kind of went over all that stuff about limiting beliefs and empty your cup of all that kind of stuff and false beliefs, and it's living in your subconscious mind. So the I don't know mind is just subtly different than that. The I don't know mind is this idea that I want to get information from my inner guide, okay, in terms of what I should do with my life. I want to have a guided life. I want a connection with that other part of myself that help direct and help me make good decisions for myself. And the issue is, we think we know what's good for ourselves. We think I can decide, I can discern what's good for me and what isn't. And the issue with that is, and the part, first let me say, the part of us that we think can do this is our intellect. We think we can figure things out and understand what is best for us. So, you guys can ponder this question, but how often have you thought something was going to be awful and it turned out to be a wonderful thing? How often did you think something was going to be wonderful and it turned out to be an awful thing? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I got a string, my life, a string of things that can fall into one of those two categories, and all kinds of other things that I judged, or people that I judged incorrectly, using this intellect. And if I'm really honest with myself, I have a very hard time using my intellect to make really valuable decisions. Whereas when I turn things over, Maurice's experience with the job was a perfect one. She said she went into meditation without an agenda. She didn't know what the answer was. She didn't know what to do, and she ended up finding the terrific job. But she sort of let go of the need to do that, and it came in for her. So one of the ideas is that I don't know, and what I don't know is I don't know the answer. Okay, so that's one thing. I don't know the answer, and I don't necessarily know what's best for me. And then the other part of that is I don't even know what the question is. So that's a little tougher idea. Like I think we can all relate to the idea. Okay, I can say that I don't really know what the absolute right answer is for this circumstance, and that's sort of a thought that we can wrap our mind around. So when we think about I don't even understand the question, that's a totally different version and a different level of the I don't know mind. Okay, so I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but what I want you to understand is by acknowledging that you don't know, you're allowing your inner guide to speak to you. When you think you know, It's usually an intellectual idea. It's tied to your ego, okay? And so your intellect and your ego are deciding what's best for you. And when you're doing this through your intellect and your ego, you're essentially blocking information from your inner guide from coming through. So questions about that? So I'm going to review that for a second. So the idea is that when we think we know, we're usually using our intellect and our ego to figure that out. And when we're using our intellect and our ego, we're blocking the ability of our inner guide to come through to us and speak to us, because they're essentially broadcasting on different frequencies. All right. And the inner guide, and just a quick description of what your inner guide is. We're going to say that I'm here living in small r reality as a person, as a human being, and big R reality is my life as a spiritual being. So that idea that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I'll use the word human rather than person. So in small r reality, I'm a human, and in big R reality, I'm spiritual. And your inner guide is a communication device between those two worlds. It understands that you believe you're human, but it also understands that you're really spiritual, and it speaks to you from that spiritual reality into your human life to help you understand things. So that's a lot of information. And that's the inner guide is what we're trying to get in contact with. Okay. And one of the ways we can do that is saying, I don't know what the answer is for me, which is really very counterintuitive, because the ego says, no, you absolutely have to figure this out. You have to understand, you have to calculate, do your pros and cons list, do your positives and negatives. You have to, do an accounting, figure out exactly what's the best thing to do. Whereas what we're talking about is following your gut instinct, which means there's some part of you that really knows what's the right thing to do. And do you listen to that part of yourself? So that's a lot of information. So questions about that? Comments, concerns about how to apply it? Leah, since we talked to you a little bit about empty your cup and you just kind of just wrapping your mind around that, does this make sense to you?
Yeah, actually this I definitely understand. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And any stories about application of this idea for you? Like Maurice's story? It's glaringly obvious.
I think I just use different verbiage, but it works. So like for me, did you read The Untethered Soul? Have we talked about that before?
We've talked about it. I have not read it yet.
Okay. So he talks about like there's like if you say hello to yourself just in your head, like you don't say it out loud. He's like, who's talking and who's receiving the hello? There's like two parts of ourselves. So like the person saying, so you can witness yourself being yourself. Like you can witness your thoughts, you can witness all of that. So I think I approach it a little differently, but it 100% makes sense. Like I actually will tell myself, I do the whole, I really don't know. I don't have the answer. But that's like my initial self trying to protect or whatever. Then I actually tell myself, no, you do know, like you do know, like just sit with it and breathe and like don't spin your wheels, like just go about your life and your day, and then the answer comes. So it's the same concept that you just drew up there, but I actually use like reverse. My verbiage is usually reversed.
Yeah, and that's fine. This idea that I don't know, and then saying that we're essentially saying is there's different parts of you. Part of you thinks you don't know, but another part of you does. Yes. Another part of you knows.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a technique for doing this, which is put the question out there. And I got a guy at the rehab that I'm working with. I didn't tell you about my rehab job. I'll tell you about that a little bit later, but I'm doing classes or groups at a rehab. And one of the things I put out there was, when you have an issue or a concern, you put it out there, and he's uncomfortable with the whole spiritual idea, but he's comfortable with a higher self. So I put this idea out, this question out at the beginning of the day, and then I let go of it and go about my day and allow the answer to come in whenever it needs to come in and in whatever way it needs to come in, whether it's something I read later in the day, it's an idea that pops up, whether it's someone says something to me that's valuable, any of those kind of ideas. But this idea that I'm talking to myself when I say hello, another sort of tangent off of that is called metacognition. Have you heard of metacognition?
No.
So metacognition is the idea of thinking about your thoughts. So most people just have the string of thoughts and that's it. And they don't ever think about, why am I having this thought? It's sort of the conversation you were talking about where you say hello to yourself and you're talking to yourself. So
Like you're watching yourself, like there's like two sides of you. Yeah.
It sounds like it's sort of a version of metacognition. I mean, in Out of the Matrix, we do a lot with, we don't mention this at all, and we don't say it, but it's metacognition where we're really thinking about, why am I thinking this thought? Why is this idea coming up for me? Why am I doing this? Why?
Yeah.
And not why am I physically doing this, but why am I doing this with my head? And in Out of the Matrix, we would often say, the reason I'm doing this, that, or the other thing is because of the false belief that I have about myself. And then so what we do is we get in touch with the false belief, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, whatever the false belief is. And then we start to witness, how does it really show up a bunch of times in my life? And then and that's sort of metacognition. I start to look back. Metacognition is supposed to happen in the moment, but I can also look back on, have I been thinking that about myself? And if I have, can I witness how it's showed up in my life? And if I can start to witness how it showed up in my life, that sort of gives that false belief more reality, conscious reality. Okay. And I don't.
That makes sense. That makes sense, because my initial thoughts are always, well, I don't know the answer to that, or I don't know what I want, or I don't know if I like that or not. But if you look at the false belief I have about myself, it's that, like, Leah really doesn't know what she wants, but that's not true, because I do. But that manifests itself in my life as in, I just do what everybody else wants me to do, because I don't allow myself to really feel into what I want myself. So yeah.
So now Maurice gave her story about her job, and that's a great description for letting go and allowing some things to come into her life. What's your version of that?
Dating.
No, well, I mean, maybe, but that's not what I'm thinking of. But much more.
Well, like I'm saying that when I date people, I just do what they want. I become who they want me to be, because I don't know what I want. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Maurice's example was she sort of turned it over, emptied her cup, and just allowed the job to show up, even though that wasn't even what she was thinking about, right? So what's your version of that in your life? It's like a neon light right now in your life.
Oh yeah, like right. My job career transition. Yeah.
Yeah, to talk a little bit about what you did with that, because I think that's a great example of this.
Oh yeah, it is actually. So yeah, I was a software consultant for 13 years. I hated every second of it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do next. I told myself I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I really didn't. But I quit my job anyway, took 6 months off. And then all of a sudden just things started happening. Like I took yoga teacher training, which introduced me to a chiropractor, which introduced me to stretching, which got me thinking how much I love body work. Then I started practicing. Now I have my own business. So stretching people. Yeah.
And so you started off with, I really am not enjoying what I'm doing with my life. And that's sort of our signal that things aren't going well. Like I need to make a change because I'm unhappy with what's happening. And you took the leap. You made some changes without knowing where it was going to lead, sort of like what Maurice was talking about. And it worked out because you went to this place of, I don't know, but I'm going to trust that things are going to
I'm going to trust anyway. Yeah.
It's interesting because that's kind of when you start talking about doing something for 13 years that you didn't like doing and you ended up leaving. I'm to that point where I may end up I'm kind of figuring out how I'm going to do my exit strategy because I have a business that same situation.
It was scary. It was really scary. Like I moved in with my mom. I'm in my mom's attic right now because that's where I
Mhm.
live. I sold everything I have just to, I'm not, it's not glamorous, but I'm so happy and I'm so aligned and like my business is thriving with very little effort because it's just in such alignment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that because it's kind of a sign I'm looking for too.
Well, there you go, Neville.
And
Yeah.
now anybody wants to buy some lawnmowers?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure you'll find some buyers,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I'll figure that one out, so.
And my story,
Thank you.
one of the things I'm doing, some of these guys have heard this, but I started teaching out of the matrix material essentially on Saturdays at a rehab center in Chardon, Ohio. It's a recovery rehab treatment house.
No
Yeah,
way.
and my friend Ann Laird, who owns the store Passport to Peru on Coventry, who's sort of a very spiritual person, sort of a medium type person. I went to her over the summer and I told her I wanted to work at the store because I essentially needed to get out of the house more. Like, give me a job. Let me just, I don't care what the pay is. I'll just get out of the house. And she's like, oh. She says to me, no way. I'm not, there's no way you're working. No, she didn't say that. She was like, oh, okay, let me think about it. But she said in her mind, like, there's no way he's working there. But she had been teaching at the rehab center for a couple of years. And she said, well, you know what, why don't you come with me this Wednesday and you can present some stuff to the guys? Because it's an all male place. And I said, sure. So I agreed, I went, and in the middle of the presentation, which I was doing the responsibility ladder, the staff started to come out of their offices to listen to it. And they were so impressed that they offered me a job at the end. So,
No way.
Very
so
cool.
which has been a great experience for me because we haven't been able to do weekends. I haven't been able to teach this all that much other than Thursday nights. And I haven't been able to teach it to new people. And the guys there are loving it. And so it's been so reinforcing for me and reminded me that, that's really what I need to be doing more often. And it's allowing me to teach out of the matrix every week to new folks and new minds, which is very exciting to be able to do. So similar to you guys, I didn't have a plan of that happening. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I have a feeling more will come with that. I don't know what else the more is. And I'm, got to empty my cup and be in the space of I don't know and allow whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. But
Yeah, the trust, like Neville said, I think, like Neville, I'm on the same page. That was the hardest thing for me. It still is actually,
yeah,
the trusting.
yeah.
But the thing is, so that you're happy now, you're not, I mean, to me,
And
that's
like the universe like rewards you when you're in alignment. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how much of a daily struggle my everything was before. And like now it's just like, wow.
yeah, your alignment with your purpose, it sounds like, and
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is almost more important than the money. I know that'll be taken care of, so that's why I'm not so concerned about that. But man, as I'm getting older, what's more important? Enjoying life or having money so I can die with a bunch of money that I'm not going to be doing anything with anyways, and being miserable. So go figure.
Yeah. So there's a couple things here to cover, which is this idea of the universe responded. And so, out of the matrix, we wouldn't say the universe responded. We would say that for Leah, our description would be, do you remember any of your false beliefs that you got in touch with over the weekend?
I don't matter.
I don't
was one of
matter.
them.
Just take that. I
Yeah.
don't matter. IDM, I don't matter. So what happened in my eyes, this is just my personal view of Leah's experience was, she had an I don't matter belief. Let's just say it was an 8. And let's just say she's reduced it to a 4. And so based on not the law of attraction now, I'm going to call it something different, the law of resonance. Which means that
Okay.
whatever, when I'm and I don't matter as an 8, then the world will resonate that back to me. And so what happened is, as you reduced your number, your resonance changed, and you brought different things into your life. So it's not really the universe rewarding you. It's you shifting your resonance by working on your subconscious mind, clearing that subconscious mind out. You're resonating in a different space, and you attract different stuff. You resonate with different things and bring those different things into your life.
That's so interesting. I was just telling someone the other day, how much better does it get than like all of my clients are people who do self-care? Because if you're paying to go get stretched regularly, you're paying to do self-care on yourself regularly. And
Correct.
now I'm surrounded by people who do self-care. And I was like, yeah, but now I'm taking care of myself. Like now I'm doing that for
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's almost the same thing with the rehab for me in the sense that, I want to teach people new minds, open minds, people who want to change. And these guys have all made a decision to get sober and they're trying to change their lives. And that's what I'm
Exactly.
teaching.
Yeah.
And it ends up making me happy.
Isn't that
So it's the same
interesting?
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So then we talk about your comment about trust. And so what is it that you're talking about trusting?
Uncertainty. That's what not trusting the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what happens is the reason you were willing to make the leap into the unknown is because you had greater trust for yourself because you had dropped that number. When your I don't know mind or I don't matter is an 8, it's really hard to trust yourself in your process.
Yeah.
But if you clear that out and
Yeah.
you reduce that number and start to feel better about yourself, then this life that I'm currently living doesn't fit for me. And I need to make a change. I'm not sure what that is and what it's going to look like, but I trust that it's going to happen right because I'm feeling better about me internally.
And I do matter. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Hey, Chris,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of interesting listening to this because you remember I showed the story about when I lived in the hood?
Yeah.
Because of my beliefs. I'm kind of going through the same thing now with transitioning out of what I'm doing. I think in a way, the lawn care business basically is anybody can do it. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Yet deep down, that's my passion. I love to create. I love to do things like that. And so I think what's happening for me is I'm allowing myself to not get stuck in like I'm a failure, loser, blah blah blah. And I'm having this situation come up when I met this guy. I'm opening up to, hey, I may not be. I got talents. I got experience. I've got a brain that works well. I know how to figure things out. I got an imagination. I've got a lot of to offer to the world, other than just cutting grass. I mean, to me, I'm transitioning from that. Um, to me, I always kind of judge guys doing lawn care as like losers. Anybody can do it. Hey, look at half these guys. I've seen some guys that are real characters. Out there with a cigarette hanging off their mouth and wearing wife beaters, mowing lawns. It's like, oh, what a bunch of effing losers. And I'm starting to see, well, I'm starting to change my concept of who I am. I think that's what's happening. And so I'll we can talk more about it later, but I'm definitely feeling a shift in me.
Yeah, and so what both of you guys are describing and what I experienced with the rehab is believing in yourself. In other words,
Yeah.
I have something more to offer the world than cutting lawns. I have something more to offer the world than going to school and managing difficult kids. And so
Yeah.
once I start to feel that way about myself, then I attract an opportunity for me to do that.
And that's what's happening for me. I'm seeing it. Opportunities are opening themselves. So it's really kind of cool.
Yeah. So Maurice and Jessica, I don't want to leave you guys out of the conversation. I don't know if you had questions or comments or thoughts about anything we're covering. You don't have to, but.
The
I
only
was just-
thought I have is I just have. Sorry, go ahead.
You're breaking up, Jessica.
Oh, I'm walking. If you guys can't hear me, it's okay. I can just listen.
Yeah, but go ahead. So now we got you.
Stop where
Okay.
you are.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, right now.
Okay. The thought that comes to my mind is I got my health coaching certificate this year, decided to go on unemployment and just take time for myself, get out of my long career. I had tried another career, it didn't work out. But the first thing they teach you in health coaching is to really go after your passion or your purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that both of you or three of you are doing that, and I'm doing that too. But there's also something to be said about having some stability. And I found a little bit of both as far as getting back into the industry I'm very good at and making good money, but also because I work from home, having the time to take care of myself and study and take care of me and learn. And it's kind of nice right now where I'm at, but I'm also thinking about getting into health coaching and seeing where that takes me. Chris, you know that I've wanted to get into health for a while.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is kind of my step in. So yeah, it's good.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like you're sort of on your way there too. And I like that you brought up passion. You're exactly right. That find out what you're passionate about and go after that. And that's certainly what Leah did and what Neville is doing. Certainly for me, it's just sort of happened. I wasn't really going after anything, but it just occurred. But yeah, find out what you're passionate about and go after that. So that's a great point to make.
Hey, so Chris, I would say your passion is teaching. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it, and you wouldn't have people are doing what you're doing, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. If you're just a talking head, we'd be like, this guy's boring. I'll catch you later. But yeah, you're passionate about what you do,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what's coming through. So,
Yeah, and for a while I was talking to one of my clients last night about a few years ago when I was going through the divorce and some of that kind of stuff and the health things that were going on. I got caught up in some depression, and I was the way I said it to this person was I was committed to my depression, and so like I kind of
That's interesting.
yeah, I look back and I was like committed to that. Like I look back and I couldn't see my way out of it. I couldn't see what I could sort of see what I was doing that was contributing to it, but I couldn't see my way out of it. So it's sort of a slow climb to get out of that and be able to look back on it and realize what's going on. And it's another I don't know moment, in the sense that I've had several in my life that I can comment on. The one that I tell on the weekend is going to spend time with my dad in my, I don't know, early 30s. And I enjoyed being with him on this particular day. And I remember getting in my car and thinking, wow, I really enjoyed being around my dad, and made me realize that I had never enjoyed being around him that I could remember. And so that's witness to the fact that I was in a state of mind around my dad that I wasn't even aware of until I got out of it. And that's sort of what happens. We get into a state of mind and we're so blinded by the state that we're in, we can't see that we're in it. The other version.
Ain't that the truth? And that could go for years.
Yeah. The other version of that was, there was a sequence of years where my daughter was born, my mother died, my son was born, and my dad died. So there was about 3 years there where all that happened, maybe 2.5 years, and it was craziness. And I remember about 6 months after all of that, I woke up one day and had midway through my day, I realized, oh, I'm actually feeling pretty good today. And I realized how crappy I had been feeling for years, but I didn't recognize it until I was out of it. So we get caught up in these things. And so I don't know if committed to my depression is the right way to term it, but I get caught up in it and I can't see that it's even happening almost. So
Chris, you're just stuck in a state.
Yes. Yep.
Well, you don't realize how depressed you are until you're out of it. You look back and you're like, wow, like I was pretty down. I feel so much better. And I'm so grateful now for where I'm at, but you're also grateful for what you went through, because everything's a learning experience.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. 100%. Yeah. So, and we talked earlier about emptying your cup, or I don't know what's best for me, or I don't know where I'm at with things. And those stories that I just told are witness to the fact that when we're in it, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. We can't really know what's going on. And so it's even more important that we get into I don't know, or empty your cup, or let go, however you want to say that. I don't know, empty your cup, or, letting go. I don't know what's best for me. In fact, sometimes I don't even know what state of mind I'm in, because I'm in it and I can't see it and I can't witness it. So
I don't realize that I do that more now than I think. I used to put so much pressure on myself to know the answer and like get so stressed, right? I think that's what it is. Like you get so stressed about coming up with the answer, but now I take my time and like I just let it come to me.
Good for you.
So that's a huge shift since probably doing Out of the Matrix.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and that was a big struggle for you. You felt like you had to figure everything out, right?
Yeah, I want to know now. I want the answer now.
Which
You're like your mom.
Which by the way, which by the way, is a valuable way to be. And I think it's what brings people out of the matrix a lot of times is they want to figure things out and understand things. And you do figure some things
Yeah.
out in the weekend and understand some things, but then you got to get to this place of letting go. I don't know, empty your cup, all those kind of things need to happen. And it's sort of very counterintuitive, especially when you come to it with a mind of, I want to figure out what's going on with me. I want to understand what's going on with me. And what we're saying is understand what's going on with you so that you can empty your cup, which is just a very different idea. But Leah, you were going to say something?
No, that's just so true. It's like I showed up like, give me the project plan, please. I'd like the
Yes.
step-by-step project plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Well,
again, that's sort of a valuable mindset to bring to it, but then you got to empty the cup.
yeah, well, it's also just being present. Like you're too far in the future, or like living in the past. If you just be now, and then it all comes to you. Not saying I live like this all the time. I still get, stressed here and there, but not like I used to. I don't react anymore. I don't let things really get under my skin.
Yeah, and also what Jessica's sort of referring to is this idea that when I'm living from my past and judging myself on my past, it's very hard to be in the present moment. And that's one of the reasons we try and work on the false beliefs and letting go of past stuff, because we want to live in the present moment, because that present moment connects us with our guidance. That your inner guide lives in the present moment, and so we want to be as present as we possibly can. So again, and there's other techniques for doing this. There's meditation techniques, but our specific technique is to go after the false beliefs that drive us to think about all this stuff in their past. Let those false beliefs go, and then we're actually letting the past go. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And allows us to live in the present moment. All right, cool. So questions, comments, concerns about that? That's a lot.
I'm really glad that we covered this tonight, because I think what I do is I try and manipulate things. So there's some things I want to get done around the house. So I say, okay, if I meditate and I just focus on that or focus on this, then I'll see what will happen, or whatever. So it's more like I'm putting parameters in there that don't need to be put in there. And I'm getting frustrated, and I'm getting like just aggravated by the whole get my house fixed procedure. I just don't know what to do anymore. So I think that's what I need to do, is go into it with I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. Just let me know.
Yeah. Let it go and let it work its way out the way it needs to. Which again is very
Yeah.
counterintuitive and very difficult to do when you're dealing with stuff that's about your life. Like really, I'm supposed to let go and essentially let go and let God is one of the ways it's said. Let go and let your higher power. Let go and let your intuitive self figure this out. That's very counterintuitive to the way the Western mind works, which is all about figuring it out and coming to the right answer. So that's a big thing. This made me think of something else. Present guidance. I think that's it. I think so. That's sort of what I have for tonight, unless anybody has any more questions.
Mm, I think
No,
that's
but
good.
thank you for the reminder. I really needed that.
Yeah, and we recorded it, so I will I'll make a copy of it and send it out tonight. You guys can look at it again if you have questions or things that you forgot, and then everyone else will be able to look at it as well.
That is something I want to bring up real quick. So, how do you feel about the program kind of teaching us? I think this way, but I'm curious. So, do you feel like the program kind of teaches you to focus more on yourself and kind of put up blinders in the sense, or just like what you feel more confident in getting to know yourself and dropping these misbeliefs, right? So
Correct.
when you're out in public with all these people that are staring at you or like bothering you or just like trying to like get your attention and deal with their crap, it's hard to be around those people is what I'm getting at. It's like I want to live my life and I know who I am and I'm doing my thing. Like, and most of the time I'm very good at not letting any of that in anymore.
Right.
And that's a big thing I learned when I did ayahuasca in December, was putting up blinders because it was so hard. Everyone was, doing the MDMA
And to not let that in, their pain is so hard because I'm such an empath. It's so hard, but like that's a good tool in life, is to put up blinders and really focus on myself. I think that in Out of the Matrix too is because you're dropping all of these misbeliefs. So like you're not carrying the baggage anymore. So it's not bothering you so much when you're out around. But yeah, I don't know. The reason I bring it up is because every once in a while it creeps in. Like sometimes when I'm at the gym, I just feel like people are staring, or just like leave me alone. Like what are you looking at?
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's hard to put up those blinders all the time.
yeah, it's funny. I just read this in a book the other day, which was the comment that was made, and this is a scribed book, supposedly Jesus's voice. But what he said was that if you have somebody who is out there helping the poor and is feeling miserable because of all these poor people and sad and upset and trying to help them, and you have someone else who isn't helping them at all, but is working to enlighten themselves and raise their vibrational level, turns out the person who's raising their vibrational level is doing more for those poor people than the person who's doing it out of sadness and distraught and upset. So that's,
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's sort of what Jessica's sort of referring to. Like, I got to put blinders on to what's going on. It's me, it's my energy, it's my vibration that raises everything and everybody else around me. Now, that's not the reason I do it. I do, and it sounds like I'm being selfish, and I'm not being selfish. I get that that's what everyone should be doing, raising their own vibrational level. And the best way for me to help them do that is for me to do it for myself.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, but I hate that people look at that as being selfish. Like most people, 95%, I was just talking about this with my mom, 95% of people would think that that's just being selfish. And that's bullshit.
Yeah. So
I'm taking care of myself and I'm setting boundaries for myself. That's not being selfish. I'm taking care of myself and living my life. If I took on all of your shit, like I would be in a much worse spot.
yes. So a couple things about that. One is you're absolutely right that people will sort of look at that as selfish. The story I have about that is, as we were teaching this to my students in school, one of the parents called to complain to me. She said that I had made her son a robot and that he didn't care about anything anymore. And and she used the word selfish. You're teaching him to be selfish and uncaring. And I was like, and I just listened. I said, okay, well, I get that that's your take. And, you know, she called me 6 months later to apologize and said that she realized that we had given him a great gift, that he had, you know, learned to not be upset about things as much as he used to be, and that it was a gift. And so you know, that's one story about that. But also, Jessica, hopefully the people that are closest to you will start to recognize that eventually, that, wow, she's really just taking care of herself, and how valuable is that? Not everybody is going to see it that way who doesn't know you real well, but like that parent got that about her son. She finally figured out, having been around him long enough and sort of heard the information a little bit, she started to get it. But you're absolutely right. Some people will see it as being selfish, and to present to the world the idea that I am doing more for the poor people by raising my vibrational level than those who are out there feeling miserable about the poor people and trying to, you know, feed them and give them money and do all those kind of things. And again, not that there's anything wrong with any of that. If you can do that, like Mother Teresa, and be in a place of peace, love, and joy, then you're even more valuable. But there's this idea that to be empathetic, I have to feel bad for people. And that's just not true.
Hard. It's hard not to let that get to you sometimes. Like this week, Neville, I know you came over, but my mom lost her brother. And I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And I felt like that because she made me feel that way. Even though like I had to take care of myself also this week. So, and I did what I could. But it's hard not to let that get to you, especially as we know with those that are closest to us.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. It can be a difficult challenge. And, you know, we're presented with those opportunities where a situation like you're describing happens, and you have to figure out how you're going to handle that. But even in those situations, you're absolutely right. The primary thing is taking care of yourself. That's what you have to do. And one of the analogies that people give are the airplane analogies. You know, they tell you, put your mask on first before you help someone with their mask. And that's sort of what we're saying. Take care of yourself first. You'll be much better able to help others if you've taken care of yourself first. And we would go back to, for us, taking care of yourself is working on that false belief, releasing that, reducing the number, feeling better about yourself. And as you feel better, the universe, as Leah termed it, responds. The resonance changes, and the people around you will change too.
Yeah, and I think it's a cool way to live. Like even last weekend, my friends invited me out to like a really early breakfast, and I'm like, I'm not a breakfast person. Like it's Saturday, I want to sleep in. I want to probably go out for a hike. Like I have to do me, you know. Like I've had a long week of work, and they admired that. You know, they were kind of like, well, why aren't you meeting us? We really want to see you at first. I ended up showing up and surprising them, and then going walking after, but. I think people are catching on to that, and it's a cool way to live my life and not let those things get to me because I know that at the end of the day, like I have to sit with myself. And if I'm not happy, then no one around me is going to be happy either.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's very true. Very true. All right, you guys. Thank you. This was a great talk. I appreciate
Yeah.
appreciate you
Excellent.
guys being here.
Yep,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff. I love all you guys, and I'm glad you're here.
Thanks, Chris.
Love
See you next
You
Thursday.
too.